A bronze at the World Junior. So what's next in Olympic prep? An update on the Leafs blue line. Is help on the way in Winnipeg? And what's the latest on Linus? For the details on these stories and more, here's our insider, Darren Dreger. Dregs, what's next on the Hockey Canada docket?
Well, for Senior VP of Hockey Operations Scott Salmond, that is a trip to Milan, Italy, and he's among the latest in entourage, I guess we could call it, which includes the NHL and the NHLPA, taking a close look at the facilities in Italy. Now, it starts with a testing event this weekend. I mean, the NHL and the Players Association are very much in tune and curious to see what the latest is there. Can the ice arena manage all of the testing that's going to go on this weekend with that tournament, which includes 3 games per day. So that's top of list, I think, for everybody. But more specific, Gino, for Hockey Canada, Scott Salmond wants to have a look at the dressing room. He wants to have a look at the practice facility and ultimately the Hockey Canada house. So I wouldn't say that there's any lingering threat now for the NHL or the NHLPA, but this test event this weekend is a big deal for everyone.
It's wild that we're still talking about this. Look, elsewhere in the NHL, it's taken a while, but the Leafs are starting to get their ship back on course. What they really need right now, Dregs, is some good news or maybe even some help on the blue line. What's the latest on that front?
Well, there's some good news coming, and that's with the return of veteran defenseman Brandon Carlo. I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs blue line has been decimated by way of injury. The path for Brandon Carlo has been a difficult one to get to this point of return, but I can tell you that head coach Craig Berube looks at Brandon Carlo as a welcome reprieve. I mean, that blue line has been held together by duct tape. So Carlo is definitely going to give this club a boost. Then you look at Chris Tanev and what is going to happen there. And there's a high level of uncertainty when looking at the remainder of this regular season, Gino. It's still uncertain as to whether or not Chris Tanev requires surgery. It's probable at this stage that determination will be made this week. And if Tanev requires surgery, then it's fair to question whether or not he'll be available this season. So that leaves General Manager Brad Treliving continuing to scour the market in need of an NHL defenseman. Top available? Well, who is that? Nobody is giving away top 4. So you're looking at third pairing defenseman. And right now, that looks pretty lean in terms of an upgrade. But one thing is certain, the Toronto Maple Leafs need to pay closer attention by adding to their blue line.
What about Winnipeg? When Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke to the media yesterday, he admitted he's talking to GMs across the league about possible short or maybe even long-term fixes. Is anything coming from those conversations, Dregs?
Well, the Winnipeg Jets are in scouting meetings now, but I wouldn't anticipate that there's going to be any remedy in the very near future, within days anyway. And also, look, Winnipeg isn't throwing in the towel. They know where they're positioned in the Western Conference standings. Is it disappointing? I mean, that's the understatement of the year in Winnipeg. Would they like to add some scoring punch, which is what the general manager was alluding to? Absolutely. But you've got to look under every stone, because the last time I checked around the NHL, Gino, GMs, other GMs, aren't just giving away productive forwards, scoring wingers or top centers. That's just not real. That stuff doesn't happen. And I think the market is clamoring for some sort of injection of positivity here and wondering from a media perspective, well, what type of assets is Cheveldayoff willing to include? Are we talking about a young player, a prospect, another first-round draft pick? None of that can be ascertained until the market shows itself. Is there a scoring forward that is available and not a rental player? Could it be a younger player that maybe you step up with the assets required? It's still too early, but I know the Jets do understand and appreciate the frustration in their market because it's deserved.
Look, I was at the Sens game with my kid when Linus Ullmark got the hook back on the 27th. He hasn't played since then. The team actually granted him a leave of absence. And now there's been an Ullmark sighting, Dregs?
Yeah, in Ottawa on Monday night. And the Ottawa Senators, as we know, hosted the Detroit Red Wings. It was a big game for the Sens. They ended up losing that game 5-3. But Linus Ullmark was spotted at the arena. Now, that is a show of good news. I think that's fair to say. It's a step in the right direction. That's how it's described to me, Gino. But there is still no timeline as to when Linus Ullmark will be able to officially return to the Ottawa Senators. In the meantime, Steve Staios is okay with the depth that he has in the goaltending position, but like every general manager, he's keeping an eye on some of the possibilities that either might exist right now or might develop in the future.
That's it for the early edition of Insider Trading. The full version of it with Dregs, Pierre, and CJ is coming up on the early edition of SportsCenter.